Hi, I'm Holly, and with my sister Heather, you're listening to Haunted Family Podcast, a somewhat weekly podcast.
An occasional podcast.
About the paranormal, unsolved mysteries, and even true crime. Yeah, we've been very laissez-faire about recording.
Ooh, pulling out the French.
I figure it's a French episode, so, I need to brush off my 4 years of French. Practice a little bit.
Yeah, that's actually came in handy because we were delayed recording because I kept asking her how to pronounce certain words. Some of them she knew, some of them we had to YouTube.
It has been 20 years since I have taken a French class, so, I'm probably not that great at it, but the last time I took a class, I wasn't allowed to speak English. So, it was a pretty, intense immersion class. So, yeah, some of it I have kept, some of it I have not.
Yeah, I probably would just not pass that class.
It was not bad. The highlight of that class, though, was a lady beside me had lost her vision during childbirth, and so she had a service dog.
How does that happen?
I have no idea. Like, her retina detached, and so she had a service dog, and it was this cute, oh my gosh, the dog was so cute, a big German Shepherd, and it was so fluffy, and it laid right at my feet, and I was really good, and I didn't pet it, and I didn't give it any food until she told me that I could, and then she got surgery, like right towards the end of class. I guess somebody died, which is sad, but she got their retina, and so she could see again. And so she didn't need her dog to be a service dog, so it became just a pet. So she brought it to class and let me love on it before she retired it to the house.
Aww.
It was great. And happy story that she got to see. But her kid was like 2 years old or something, and she'd never been able to see it because, like, I guess the straining or something. That was very sad.
That makes me never want to have a child.
Well, you're also kind of old.
I am.
And I've kind of gotten used to not having any nieces or nephews that, are human. So I just don't know that I could handle that. Okay. You want to jump right in?
Yeah, we are rambling. And apparently some listeners don't like rambling.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we talking about today?
Well, with the fire that happened last month, we got thinking, you know what? Well, actually, we kind of got joking about it at first, about how anytime there's any kind of fire, people start pulling out the crazy photoshopped faces of Jesus in flames pictures, and the internet goes crazy.
I actually posted one on our Instagram page. We're funny on Instagram, by the way. If you don't follow us, you should. And
we're funny in real life too.
But it was a direct result because I'm part of Facebook group for paranormal. Someone posted one of the pictures, and it was like, oh my God, look at, and that's what tipped me off. I was like, oh my God, this is going to become a thing. And like, the church was still like, they had just put out the flames. I was like, this is going to be a thing. So I made it my own, like, with like 1,000 arrows on it. I was like, how armchair paranormal investigators are going to start looking at Notre Dame pictures. And yeah. Sometimes there really are things that pop up, but
yeah, okay, like that picture that we shared on our Instagram of that house that I was looking at in Connecticut.
Yeah, but your mind and your eyes absolutely has this amazing ability to make familiar shapes out of nothing.
I know it's how you can lay on your back and look at the clouds and see an elephant parade.
Yeah, or a dinosaur, or whatever.
Yeah. So that got us talking about, we haven't done paranormal in a while, so let's do a Ghost of Notre Dame, which then turned into, we found 400 gajillion pieces of information about Ghosts of Notre Dame, the university.
Which we probably should do a whole episode on at some point in time.
I know we should. I think as research, I should get tickets and go to a game.
Oh, but it's so far away.
It's not too far. It's just a few hours.
I think it's farther than that.
No. I'm looking it up. It is 284 miles away. So 5 hours and 50 minutes.
That's not that bad.
It's not.
I was trying to talk Anthony into going with me to the Villisca Axe Murder House today, so that's like 13 hours away or something like that.
Yeah.
I still want to go, though.
Me too.
I just need to find people crazy enough to go with me.
So, let's talk.
So, the very first paranormal experiences happened like way back when the building is still being built.
Yes.
I mean, and like, I guess we don't really know exactly what transpired on the grounds before the cathedral was
before
built there.
it became Notre Dame, it was actually a pagan church. And then I don't know what happened to it, like why it stopped being a pagan church, but then
But Christianity has a habit of taking over holy sites of other places and,
and holy holidays.
Yeah. You see that, and I don't want any hate mail from this. If you actually do your research, you'll find it. Trust me on this, y'all.
We're gonna get hate mail.
We're gonna get hate mail.
It's
gonna be like the time I almost got kicked out of Sunday school. We're gonna get hate mail.
So it became like 3 different other Christian churches, and then from there, this massive Gothic architecture that we know today as Notre Dame Cathedral was built.
Yeah, they started construction on it in 1163.
Yeah, so a long time ago.
And it was completed in 1345. I can't even wrap my mind around how long ago that was. But 850 years, if you want to get technical-ish.
Yeah.
Ish.
So
one of the first paranormal experiences happened around somewhere in the 1300s. So the building was in production, but hadn't been finished yet. One of the men who was contracted to build the doors.
Cornet.
Yes. And I'm sure being French, that was probably pronounced some weird way with lots of...
Well, actually, I think the E-T, it would be an A sound. So it'd be like Biscornet.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I love listening to the French language spoken, correctly. But it's a hard language to learn, in my opinion.
I took 4 years of it, and I can't remember it 20 years later.
Yeah.
But, it probably took me... I didn't grasp it until I started taking it in college. So, my years of taking it in high school really did nothing.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I took it in college that I started, really getting an understanding of the language. So, it's hard, but honestly, I think English is harder. It's just... we've been speaking it all of our lives, so we don't realize the craziness that is English.
Well, I can understand that. So this man, Bisquick, I don't know. Every attempt he made at designs for the main door to the church was rejected by the church. Like the board that was planning the building. And so he turned to prayer. And...
that was not answered quickly enough.
Yeah.
So you do what the next best thing is.
You light some candles and you summon the devil.
And then you're like, I will sell my soul to... what happens if you sell your soul to somebody? Do you become mean or something?
I don't know. Well, Robert Johnson learned how to play guitar from selling his soul, so...
Oh. Well, apparently this guy, though, made a kick-ass metal door. That was awesome, and the cathedral people loved it.
You want to sell our souls to become awesome podcasters?
Nah, it's not.
Okay.
Nah. And supposedly the door has, and if you look at pictures of the door, it is very intricate and swirly. And yes, you can kind of make out a 666, but it also could just be that it was swirly.
Yeah. So it could be 666.
Your mind sees what it wants to see.
Yeah. One of those things. Your mind can make patterns. The pattern is there. It swirls, but Did he intend for it to be 666?
We'll have to ask the devil.
Yeah. Or we can consult our Ouija board and summon this Biscornet guy and ask him ourselves.
We can.
Stay tuned for our next episode of Haunted Family YouTube.
We could, yeah.
Okay.
But the doors wouldn't open. As gorgeous as they are, as intricate as they are, they wouldn't open.
And so the other workers went to find the ironworker, Mr. Biscornet, and they found that he had hung himself.
I did not hear that he hung himself.
Yes. But he left behind a letter suggesting that they throw copious amounts of holy water on the door. After they doused the doors with holy water, the doors opened with ease.
So really what happens, you sell your soul, you get a great product, and then you die.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, basically, the same thing happened for the locks. I'm thinking that maybe the church had high expectations for these crafters.
And with high expectations comes a lot of pressure and stress. And sometimes when you're under a lot of pressure,
the devil's got to help you build that damn church.
Exactly.
He sold himself to the devil, got the locks made, and he was found dead a couple days later also.
So we should not sell our soul to the devil in exchange for an awesome podcast.
No, because we would have one great episode and then we'd be dead. And who would take care of Sophie?
Well, not Emmy, because she can only handle one high maintenance dog.
Yeah.
That's West.
During World War I, bombs were dropped all around the cathedral, but none of them exploded. And so the church survived.
I think that was the devil protecting his handiwork.
I mean, it could be, but other people who did not sell themselves to the devil think that what happened was it was the relics that were inside was kind of casting a protective force field, because it's got the crown of thorns.
This reminds me of, I've been thinking about doing a YouTube episode on crazy conspiracy theories that I have heard about the fire at Notre Dame. And this actually has some bearing on that. So they've been doing some remodeling at Notre Dame. Actually, they believe that's what led to the fire. Well, part of it is they removed a lot of the relics and some of the statues off the roof. Somebody suggested that those relics and the statues was actually like a protective circle around the cathedral, keeping it safe. And then when they removed them, they broke the charm, which led to the fire.
I mean, this is not a ghost thing. I mean, I guess it could be, kind of. But so the crown of thorns are at Notre Dame. I mean, they're not currently. Now they're at the Louvre. But they were at Notre Dame. And every 70 years, when Good Friday and the Feast of the Annunciation fall on the same day, it's said that the crown of thorns drip with blood.
Nice.
This is just a side note here. I don't have a whole story about it. But, one of the first things I thought of when I saw that the roof was on fire was I was like, oh, the hunchback. But apparently there was a hunchback who was a stone carver who did work on the Notre Dame in 1820. And him and Victor Hugo knew each other. They were like from the same little town. So, I mean, he didn't live in the tower or anything like that, but it was just kind of he really did work on the building. Okay, you want to talk about the suicides?
Well, we can. I actually have I kept seeing all these, before we get into that, I kept seeing all these stories about Napoleon's ghost is supposed to haunt Notre Dame.
Okay.
Because Notre Dame is such an important part of French history and French, royal history. But right. I can never find an actual story about a sighting or an experience. And finally, I stumbled across MontrealParanormal.com. And I'm guessing this is from one of their researchers. So I'm going to read it word for word. The person in question is Patrick Zakim. I'm sorry. We all know I'm horrible with names. This, he goes on to say, December 2010, I was in Paris a few days before Christmas, and it was snowing and cold. On the 25th of December, around noon, I went to visit Notre Dame Cathedral, which was only a couple minutes away from my hotel. This was my 5th visit, beside the normal ghost vibes that I have felt before and were used to. I visited the cathedral 4 times in the past, a few days before Christmas, and saw, spiritually, nothing. Until on the 25th of December. My previous visits were actually to hear the sound of the bells from the 1700s, called Emmanuel Bell. They weigh around 13 tons. I have heard it before from the outside, and was just stunned. It gave an eerie sound of those times when it was constructed. You are literally transported back several hundred years in time, and if you listen and concentrate on it, it can give you a glimpse on how life was like in the days back when that bell was made. I got inside on the 25th and passed by the entrance desk. I was surprised by the particular presence in the cathedral. It was something that I have never felt before, that of Napoleon Bonaparte. I looked at my phone, and it was 12:35 p.m. His presence vibes were concentrated in the middle of where the Mass was being held. He was just there, and there was no feelings of sadness, anger, or anything else coming from him. As I stood there, with the crowd inside, I kept on feeling his presence, his soul filling the area in front of me, for an additional 20 to 25 minutes. Then it stopped. I don't know, though, how long he had been there before my arrival. The cathedral was packed with people from all over the world. I did not try to make contact with him. It may sound silly, but I actually didn't know what to say to him. Imagine yourself in my place. What would you have told Napoleon Bonaparte? The historic Napoleon. I could think of a few things I'd have told him. The Emperor himself. I'm not interested in this personality, nor know much of him. Just some basic things, actually. That he was once the Emperor of France, sometime in the 1800s, where he was forced afterward to exile on the island of Elba, and where he died later, supposedly poisoned by arsenic. Napoleon was married to Josephine, they say in the same cathedral. As for hearing the bells, still, even on my 5th visit, the cathedral looking forward to hearing it from the inside. I was not lucky this time either. The bell would only be rung when I was outside and away from the cathedral. These are the only times I've heard it. I think if I ever saw the ghost of Napoleon, the first thing I would say was, I loved you in Bill and Ted.
Yeah, you were great.
So, as Holly mentioned, we have, there's been several suicides there. And these are in no particular order as far as dates go. On May 21st, 2013, 78-year-old Dominique Werner put a letter on the altar, then pulled out a gun and shot himself in the head. The letter said, Declaration of Dominique Werner, Reasons for Voluntary Death. He also left behind a suicide manifesto and a blog post. Werner was a militant far-right activist, and he was not happy with what he called the great replacement of the people of France. The prospect of France, in his words, falling into Islamic hands, and how France was going to be legalizing gay marriage.
It's all pretty dramatic. I mean, that was a Facebook flounce to Facebook flounce, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So in February 11th, 1931, these are the only 2 people that we know of, shot themselves at the altar.
And apparently, if you kill yourself inside of the church has to be shut down and reconsecrated.
Like, how do you consecrate a church?
I don't know, but I'm sure that if we pull out one of our Methodist ritual books, that there is like procedures for reconsecrating a church. Because you remember there was all that thing about how to bless your house and all this and blah, blah, blah. And
So, Antoinetta Mercado was a writer, a feminist, an arts patron.
I think she was friends with Frida Kahlo, and she was just all around like the type of person you'd want to hang out with.
Yeah, she sounded super cool. But she liked the wrong man.
Yeah.
In 1929, she started having an affair with a married politician, Jose Vasconcelos.
She was actually still married at this time herself.
Yeah, she was trying to get a divorce, but he wouldn't allow her, and
Yeah.
it was a mess. So she moved in 1931 to Paris to follow Jose.
And took her child with her husband with her.
She gets to France, and Jose breaks up with her. And she's distraught, goes into the church, up to the altar, and she shoots herself right there at the altar. Lionel Natoli attempted suicide by shooting himself at the altar in 1954, but he only injured his left shoulder. So they didn't have to reconsecrate for him because he didn't kill himself. They just had to do a reconciliation ceremony.
Yeah.
The bad thing is that the press for the reconsecrating was actually greater than the press for the actual suicides.
On October 2nd, 1964, Denise Ray Hermé jumped from one of the towers, and she landed on 21-year-old American vacationer Veronica McConnell, and they both died.
Oh. In 1890, there was an unnamed 21-year-old who also jumped from a tower, didn't land on anybody, and they died, but we don't have a name.
Yeah. October 15th, 1973, Jean Gulek, 65, jumped from one of the towers. He died, and in the process, he also injured Dexmer Clyde Epps. In 1983, Veronique Stala Bordillon jumped from the tower, and when she landed on Joanne Peltier, 24, and they both died.
Could you imagine, like, you're just going about your business, and then all of a sudden somebody lands on top of you?
If I'm remembering, I didn't put this in my notes, but if I'm remembering correctly, Joanne was walking in with her sister. They were vacationing, and they were our tour group.
Well, if we go on any tour groups together, I will try to make sure that nobody jumps on us.
We look up before we walk into buildings.
Okay. Marie Felix in 1882. This one was gruesome. She wanted to go up to the towers, but they wouldn't let her because she needed a chaperone, and I don't understand that because she wasn't under 18 or anything like that. So I don't know why she would need a chaperone. And at first I thought maybe she needed a male chaperone because she was a woman on her own, but she took an elderly woman up with her. So I don't know. I don't understand. But she gets to the top. When she gets to the top, a heavy storm blows through, and everybody goes under the shelter except for her, and she climbs up and jumps off, and she lands on a spike on a railing, and it cuts her body in half.
Oh.
Yeah, and her family had said that she had threatened suicide before, but that she wasn't sad, like she wasn't, she wasn't depressed, she wasn't showing signs of, like she wasn't distraught over anything going on in her life. She was just talking about suicide. And so when they did an autopsy, I don't know why they would do an autopsy. I guess maybe to find out why she committed suicide because, obviously what killed her was she landed on a spike. But her brain had lesions. So, this was 1882. The doctors said that, the lesions were probably what caused her to have suicidal thoughts. It's 1882. I'm kind of surprised that the doctors didn't say that the lesions was because she was possessed by ghosts, but...
Yeah, and that should have been fine if they just, did some bloodletting or something.
Yeah.
Considering the Catholic Church's strong stance on suicide, I'm surprised that so many people have committed suicide on or in the church.
I know, me too. It just seems weird. Like, okay, I can understand throwing yourself off a building. I mean, I personally would not do it because, one, you could land on somebody and hurt them, or two, there's a chance that you might not die.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see how some people would think that's a good idea. Personally, not me. But I don't think that I would throw myself off of a religious building. I mean, kind of like when we did the story of the ghost at Moorhead. Like, why in the world would you throw yourself off a 8-story building? You're probably not going to die.
But they did. They lingered for a bit.
I know. I mean, why would you want to linger?
Yeah, not pleasant.
That's all I have of...
That's all the suicides I have. I'm sure that there are probably some suicides that have been just lost or covered up or not reported extensively.
I mean, the funny thing is that a building that old, 850 years old, where there's been lots of famous funerals, weddings, a place where there are priceless artifacts of Christianity, and we really have no hard and fast, I mean, we have some suicides, but we don't know for a fact that they're haunting. We just, we have no real stories.
Yeah.
That's kind of sad.
Now, I found an interesting thing. In the year 1793, we're in the middle of the French Revolution here. Mm-hmm. An angry mob raided the church. And they beheaded 28 statues of kings that was on the outside of the church.
That's weird.
Yeah. But this was also the same year that they beheaded the very real, and until they beheaded her, the very much alive Marie Antoinette.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah. But, I mean, it was a revolution. Sometimes heads gotta roll.
That was really sick, Heather.
It was.
It's too soon.
Yeah, on one hand, I can look at Marie Antoinette as a sympathetic figure because, yes, she was out of touch, but I don't think it was so much intentional on her part as it was how everything in her world was constructed for it to be.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, on the other hand, I can't really, say much about an angry mob beheading people who, we're just going to end it at that.
Okay.
Another famous beheading in France. I just thought this one was kind of funny.
Funny beheading?
Yeah, well, kind of. Before Marie Antoinette nabbed the top spot as the most fabulous beheading in France, there was Saint Denis. Saint Denis, you say? Why, yes. In 2050 AD, the Romans caught him preaching Christianity and ordered him decapitated on top of Mont Martyr. It actually probably was not even named that at the time, but it was a really hot day that day, and halfway up the hill, his Roman guards got really tired and decided they were just going to decapitate him right there halfway up the hill.
Because they were too tired to continue to walk?
Up the hill in the hot sun. But they decapitate him, and Dennis's headless body just picks his head up and proceeds to walk several more miles while still preaching his sermon.
How?
That's the miracle of it, Holly.
Oh, sorry, I'm missing the whole miracle thing.
Yeah. So they believe that is how Mont Martyr got its name. From, mountain and martyr. There is a statue depicting Saint Denis on the western facade of Notre Dame. And he is holding his head. So we kind of ran out of really awesome stories about Notre Dame because
No, for such a grand building, it was kind of lame in the whole haunted part.
and we actually put off recording in part to try to find more stories.
So, what we do have for you today, people, is
A musical.
we have several other
Okay, not a
hauntings
musical.
in Paris. 2 musicals. Well, I guess one's an opera.
But we're not we won't be singing.
We will not be singing. Although, I could break out my clarinet and play us some music of the night. Da, da,
Please.
da, da. No playing.
Please don't. I don't want us to get copyright infringed or have to pay like a lot of money to
Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the book of Phantom of the Opera was written in 1911 by a French investigative journalist. The guy's name was Gaston Leroy, in case you did not know that. And it's a story about a phantom that lives in the catacombs under the Paris Opera House.
Gaston Leroy?
Yes. So, he claimed until he died that it was inspired by true events. And those true events are that the construction of the Opera House started in 1861. But it was swampy land, and so they couldn't drain all the water out. So the French, being ingenious as they are, just built the swampy lake water inside the walls. Which, how in the world that is kept from being a moldy nightmare, I don't know. So there, underneath the Paris Opera House, there are tunnels, and then there are big things of water. I mean, I've never personally been under the Paris Opera House, but that's what I've been told.
But, we'd totally do it if we could.
Yeah. If I went to Paris, underneath the Opera House would be a place I would want to go. So
Paris is actually a bucket list for me.
Me too.
Fun fact about Holly and I, we actually have a relative that is buried in France. Mm-hmm. Like a recent relative, not like one of our ancestors, because we do have some ancestors from France. But one of our great uncles, one of our paternal grandfather's brothers, is buried in France, where he died in World War II.
So the real Phantom lived in Paris, and he was born disfigured, and he always wore a white mask. A little bit classier than Jason Voorhees' mask.
Because he's French. I mean...
Because he is French, and French people are classy. It is the wine and cheese, I think. Well, this Phantom, who is not really a Phantom yet, he's a real life person. He fell in love with a soprano, which is, people who listen and maybe don't know choir, your soprano is your women who sing, like they're the highest octave of singers. You've got your soprano, your alto, your tenor, and your bass. She did not love him back.
Daddy sang bass, Mama sang tenor. Oh, sorry. We're going to get a copyright infringement on that now.
Okay, she didn't love him back, so he, doing what any logical person who was snubbed by the love of their life would do, he did not fling himself off the towers of Notre Dame. Instead, he locked himself in the catacombs underneath the Opera House and starved himself to death. His bones were actually found by a construction worker way later. And so there are people who say that they hear the Phantom whispering and that they see a man in a cloak and a white mask.
Man, now that'd be a ghost I'd want to hang out with.
Yeah. In dreams he came to me. I'm going to have to stop singing or Andrew Lloyd Webber will sue me. Yeah. I always wanted to go watch Phantom on Broadway, but... So do you have a story that is not Notre Dame related?
I have a few, well, a couple. One is, how many of y'all have heard of Sweeney Todd? Show of hands.
My hand.
I've actually never watched the movie with Johnny Depp.
What?
I don't know, call me weird, but, I know everyone raved about it, but For me, lately, Johnny Depp's just been letting me down.
Well, it was good.
Okay, what you all may not know is that there was a real life Sweeney Todd in Paris.
What?
And you can still visit the remnants of his barbershop.
That's cool.
It's actually,
I need a haircut.
Well, I mean, it's actually the motorcycle garage for the Paris Police Department now, but kind of fitting from murder barbershop to motorcycle garage police department. But yeah,
I mean, there's a lot of cutting going on there.
Yes, he was known as the Demon Barber of the Rue Chenois, and I even googled how to say it.
Chenois.
Yes. There's this little thing on YouTube called How to Pronounce. And I've been trying to look up words that I have trouble with on that. And I literally, right before we started recording, I used that. And I still mispronounced it. I'm going to have to start writing over top of the words. The phonetic pronunciation. But yeah, anyway. He operated in the 14th century. And yeah, I think at the time it was called the one article I saw called it the Rue Marmoset or something like that. But it's the Rue whatever Holly said now. Chenois. And just like the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, he made the same stupid, silly mistake of passing his meat to a local butcher who, eventually led to them getting caught.
Grounded up.
Yep. But if you are in Paris and you want to check it out, it is number 20 Rue Chenois.
Yay.
And some say that you can still hear the faint screams of people getting murdered. Or it could be cops hazing each other. Either is,
I just think that murdering your customers is a terrible way to have repeat business.
Eventually, you're going to run out of customers or you're going to get caught.
Yeah.
But, being a barber is like... Okay, I understand that back then, and up until semi-recently, barbers also were kind of in a medical field. They did bloodletting. That's actually how the striped barber pole came in to play.
Did not know that.
Yes. The red striped barber pole meant that you also did bloodletting.
Ew.
But think about it. You've already got sharp tools.
True.
Yeah. But
and you're giving a killer haircut.
Yes. But
I've been sitting on that for a while now.
I just think that being a barber, if you do a decent job, you're going to get repeat customers.
I don't know. Maybe he was just a terrible barber, too, so he just had to kill people before they spread the word that he sucked.
And then pass the meat on to a butcher and get some money kickback. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, well, I have two more stories.
Okay, I have one more.
Well, my one more in Paris is the Man in Black, not Johnny Cash.
Are we sure?
But on June, pretty sure. On June, there was music involved though. June 1925, a medical student named Jean Ramier was sitting on a bench when a man in black, well, he was wearing a black coat, maybe not totally in black, but he came up and he sat on the bench with the guy and they started talking, and the guy in the black jacket asked him if he liked chamber music, and he said, I do like chamber music. And he said, well, I'm having a concert at my apartment, you should come listen. The guy said his name was Alphonse Bourrier, and the medical student was like, yeah, cool, I'll come to your apartment and listen to music. This never goes well. I really thought he was going to be murdered, but he does not get murdered.
Okay, yeah, I was starting to think that he's going to get murdered because, yeah, that's scary.
Yeah. People don't go to people's apartments that you just meet. So he goes to the apartment. It's on Rue de Vaugirard. And the guy says it was large. It was decorated kind of old-fashioned. The concert starts, and it's great, and he's enjoying himself, and there's other people there, and he's talking to them. And about midnight, he says his goodbyes, and he leaves, and he gets down on the street, because it's a third-floor apartment. He gets on the street, and he realizes he does not have his lighter, and he doesn't have another lighter. And it's midnight, so everything's probably closed. So he goes back up to the apartment, and he's knocking on the door. Nobody answers. Banging on the door. Nobody answers. Yelling. Nobody's answering. Finally, a neighbor opens the door and asks him what his problem is. And he says, I left my lighter inside. And the person said, well, actually says, I was just at Alphonse Bourrier's apartment, and I left my lighter inside. And so the neighbor says, well, that was Alphonse Bourrier's apartment, but he died 15 years ago, and the apartment has been empty ever since.
Nice.
Yeah. What kind of apartment complex can leave an apartment empty for 15 years?
I don't know. I mean, that's must not have been a very desirable apartment.
When my next door neighbor died, her house was empty for a year.
Unless it was owned instead of rented, and the family was disputing.
For 15 years?
I mean, it happens with property.
I guess.
I think we've probably all heard about Catherine de Medici.
I haven't.
You have heard of Catherine de Medici.
Okay, I have.
And for those listeners who have watched the TV show Reign on, I think it's like CW, she was just as deceitful in real life as she is on the show. Probably a little bit more. She was Queen of France in the 16th century, and, I mean, she made enemies. And she made enemies disappear.
Well, listen, if I was queen, that's what I would do. Like, Queen Elizabeth is way too nice for her own good.
Well, I mean, we don't know that for a fact. She might have a secret army of mercenaries that go out and murder people. And she's just really good at covering it up with that sweet grandma smile and wave.
Well, even before she had the grandma face, because she started being queen when she was like a teenager. She was cute then, too.
Yeah, she probably has an evil streak. I read somewhere that she has like a glass of gin every day or something like that. She's probably got like...
That's cool.
She's probably got like an evil streak.
She had corgis. I don't think people with corgis can have an evil streak. I mean, they're little wiggle butts. Like, how could you be evil and have a dog that's butt wiggles like that?
It's all part of her show. She plays this all out on the public stage of being like this sweet little grandma and, you know, all sweet and cute. And then she's like, behind closed doors, she's like, okay, I want this person murdered.
Okay. Tell me your story.
So, as somebody who has a lot of enemies, sometimes you have to have, all the time, you have to have people who are willing to, you know, murder people for you.
Oh, well, you should have that even if you're not.
You're the Queen of France. You can't, you know, go out and murder people on your own. You might get blood on your dress. Yeah. And those dresses are hard to launder.
You might lose a crown, like you lose a stone in your tiara or something.
You know, this is an issue I have with Queen Elizabeth. If I was the freaking queen of a country, I would wear my biggest tiara every single day.
It probably is hard on her neck, though.
Well, I would be like Queen Victoria. I'd wear my little tiny dainty fairy crown every single day.
Yeah, but I feel like she doesn't have to because everybody knows she's the Queen of England.
One of her favorite henchmen was a man named John the Skinner.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's a very nice name for an assassin. But
yes,
she grew concerned that John the Skinner had got to know a little bit too much about her business.
That is the downside of having a favorite henchman.
That is. So she needed to have him killed.
So the second favorite henchman killed the first favorite henchman.
Yeah, so she arranged to have him murdered outside of one of the palaces. But not long afterwards, people started seeing a man in the gardens wearing blood red clothing.
Wearing henchman clothing?
And every time they would see him, it signaled that somebody was about to die a very violent death.
Eek.
One of the more famous people to have seen him was someone named Marie Antoinette.
Oh, poor Marie Antoinette.
Who saw him not long before she lost her own head. Napoleon, being the crafty devil that he was, actually supposedly struck up a relationship with this ghost and used him to predict the outcomes of battles and, kind of gauge how some of Napoleon's own political intrigues and wars were going.
Well, I mean, if you've got a ghost, you might as well use them.
Exactly.
Okay, before I start my last story, I'm going to say, I don't know that it was a ghost, but something weird happened here the other day. So I already told you about it, so I'm just telling everybody else about it. So it was about, oh gosh, I don't even know what time of day it was. It wasn't dark, but it wasn't super dusky yet, but it was after school. So it was sometime between 3 and 6, I guess. I was in my room. Emmy was next door in her room. She was taking a nap. And Abby was here, and she was kind of beside, my room is like in the middle of theirs. And she was in the craft/guest room. But she had the door shut. I did not have my door shut. Emmy did not have her door shut. Some of the dogs were outside, but all the cats were in the house. And some of the dogs were in the house because Abby had her dogs here too. So I hear what sounds like a muffled scream. Like it sounded like Emmy had buried her head in a pillow and screamed. Stopped my heart. I jumped up, tripped over my computer charger.
Because I mean, she's approaching finals and stuff for high school. It's right, stressful.
Yeah. It is. She's finishing her freshman year. She's got finals all coming up, and it's a stressful time. Of course, Abby's got finals in college coming up, so it's stressful for both girls right now. But it sounded like it was coming more towards the right, but so it doesn't matter. I stumble out of the room, and I run to Emmy's room, and I'm like, "What's going on? Are you all right?" And she was like, "No, I was dreaming, and in my dream there was a scream, and then you burst in here and asked me if everything was all right." And I said, because I heard a scream. And then Abby opens her door and she's like, "What's going on? I heard a scream." And I'm like, "I don't know. I thought it was your sister, but it's not." So then we run to the door because, one of the dogs that's outside is the pit bull. So I'm thinking, okay, has she jumped the fence? Like, my next door neighbors have a pit too.
Or did someone jump your fence and she's got this person
right, or did somebody jump my fence? And because she gets along well with the neighbor's dog. We don't have a problem with our dogs. So I was like, did that happen? Like, there's like a million things running through my mind. I jerk open the door and she's literally sitting there in front of the door looking at me like, "Oh, why are you freaked out?" So I let her in, let the other dogs in, and there's nothing going on in the backyard. Like, it's quiet. There's nobody outside. So we're like, that's so weird. So we go out front. And Abby's like, it's so weird because it's like everything is so completely normal. Like, the next door neighbors were doing gardening. So, like, they weren't screaming or anything. They're college students. They're like adult college students, not like party college students. So, they were gardening. That's what kind of college students they are. It was just weird. Like, there was, like, I don't know where the scream came from, but it was just weird. So then Abby got freaked out thinking that it was somebody living in our attic, which is impossible. But I climbed to the attic and I looked to make sure. It was weird. So,
and still don't know where the scream came from.
Still have no idea where the scream from. But at least my dog didn't have somebody pinned, because that would have been bad. Because I'm going to tell you that I don't think that she would survive 10 days in a shelter on a hold to make sure that she wasn't like vicious or rabied or anything, because
Well, she's vaccinated though.
she is.
So
I mean, our vet literally is across the street from us, so they would vouch. She's a cuddler. She wouldn't do well. She wouldn't do well in a shelter. She'd be terrified. She'd be those dogs that like you go in and they're shaking because they don't know what's going on. Okay, so my last story is, I wanted to do a Notre Dame story. That was Notre Dame.
Since we found so many Notre Dame college stories,
so
Holly wanted to do a college story.
So I'm going to do it. The most haunted building at Notre Dame, Washington Hall. And at one point, it was a residential building. Now it is not a residential building, unless that's changed recently. It's now a classroom, I think drama or something like that now. So, but in 1886, a person working in the building fell to their death. In 1919, a student professor named Jim Menavia got sick and he died. And he lived there, but he was kind of famous for playing his horn at night. I don't know what kind of horn, and if you're a band person, that kind of makes a difference. Just by what I'm reading, I think it was kind of like a trumpet-like thing. So like maybe a cornet or something.
It annoys me when they don't specify.
Yeah, well, what makes me too. But students have said that at midnight every night, you can hear somebody playing a perfect B flat. So I don't know how they know it's a B flat, unless somebody else has music experience. But the very next year, a All-American football player named George Gipp came home late, and the building was locked and he couldn't get in. So he fell asleep outside the building and he got pneumonia. I can relate because I've slept outside once and I got pneumonia too. So I don't do that anymore. Camping sucks.
I've slept outside dozens of times and have not gotten pneumonia.
Well, me and George Gipp, we're fragile. But what is famous about that person's death is he gave this legendary deathbed speech that we still kind of reference today. You may not reference it, but other people reference it. He died on December 14th, 1920. So it was sometime before then. Obviously, he didn't give it after he died. But he was talking to Coach Rockney, and he says, "Sometime, Rock, when the team is up against it, when things are wrong and the brakes are beating the boys, tell them to go in there with all they've got and win just one for the Gipper. I don't know where I'll be then, Rock, but I'll be about it and I'll be happy." Or I'm sorry, I'll know about it and I'll be happy. That, like now if you hear somebody say, "Just do it for the Gipper," that's it. That's where it came from.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was this football player at Notre Dame who died because he couldn't get into his dorm room. What a waste, because he was a really good player too. Well, do we have a stupid criminal?
We do, actually. And this comes from a little place called Pilgrim, Kentucky.
Oh, I know Pilgrim.
A Martin County. That's where Pilgrim is.
I know, I've been there.
Tell our listeners. You might not know, Holly.
I thought you were telling me. I was like, I know.
Found themselves behind bars after a state trooper discovered illegal drugs while helping them search for a lost tooth. Troopers were dispatched to a home in Pilgrim after Post 9 received a phone call that there was an argument that was overheard by neighbors. Upon arrival, 36-year-old Laura Davis and 41-year-old Christopher Maynard were arguing. Davis agreed to leave the residence, but said she was having trouble locating a lost tooth. The troopers offered assistance, being the good guys that they are. While searching for a tooth under a chair, troopers located cash and several different prescription narcotics. Both were lodged in the Big Sandy Regional Detention Center on various drug charges. The tooth was never found.
Hey, and the Big Sandy Regional Detention Center made the news this week, too.
Yes, they had a suicide. And the suicide kind of brought to light the really crazy, deplorable conditions in the jail.
Oh, it's bad. I don't know how anybody is working there, much less living there.
Like, at one point, they recently fired their jail administrator, and the only person on the board that voted to keep the administrator said, well, we only had a little bit of mold issue and some painting issues. We passed state inspections last month. And then, literally in the same breath, he said, the jail's falling apart. We got cracks. The walls are coming apart. Like, I literally, like, the guy's interview made no sense. So either the jail's in fine condition and it just needs a little paint, or the jail's falling apart. Which is it, bro?
Well, from the pictures, it looks like it's falling apart.
Yeah. From the pictures, the staff and the administrator and the whole jail board, which the jail board is made up of people from all the different counties that the jail services, because it's a regional jail. They all need to be ashamed of themselves, because it's a group effort. It did not get that way just because inmates are being inmates.
I don't know how inmates could create mold.
No, it got that way because people who just don't care. And that starts from the top down.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. Like, I'll be surprised if we don't find ourselves in a lot of trouble like Boyd County's jail did.
Well, I think that we had a good episode this week.
We did. Thank you all for sticking with us.
You should definitely check out our YouTube channel. It is not just the audio of this recording, but Heather works really hard to give you bonus episodes of paranormal stories every week. She's much more diligent about that than we are about recording.
Yeah. Sometimes I do like fun little paranormal tour videos where I take you around to different places, and ghost story videos where I, tell different ghost stories. If you have a ghost story you would like to share, send me an email.
hauntedfamilypodcast at gmail.com.
I'm having a lot of fun with the YouTube channel, and we are like this close to hitting 100 subscribers.
Yay!
Yeah, so
check out my Etsy shop, Cat Hair Glitter, and the new shop, which is at the moment just decorative candles and decorative pillows, and it is nothing true crime or paranormal, but Cat Hair and Glitter is. New shop is Olivia Beth Boutique, and I'll have the links to all of that in our show notes.
Yeah. Actually, when I get my studio back up and fully decorated again, because we're still doing home remodeling, I think I want a Ouija board pillow for behind me when I'm recording.
I can do it.
Okay. I'll send you a couple designs I have in mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.